I'm doing well. I'm feeling awesome, strong, and I think that's gradually I've got where my energy was prior to the attack.
All right. How do you think you caught the virus?
That's one thing that is difficult to tell, and it appears it hasn't been only me. Quite a number of people that I met at the hospital did say same. No, they couldn't identify or figure out where they caught or they contracted it. It's strange. I mean, in my case, I was out of the country, came back somewhere around the 16th of March. 2-3 weeks after that, I did a test. It was negative, by which time I'd also closed down my office because generally the lockdown had affected our line of operation so much. So pretty much I've been home since March the 16th. Occasionally, and I would probably step out for a one-on-one meeting with a client or so. But rarely would I go out. There was, I think, 1 or 2 occasions that I met a group of friends, which were not more than even 10 or 15, I think so. But it's really difficult to tell where I contracted it.
But at least you can say that there were instances where you probably may have exposed yourself or become exposed to the virus. Or...
Well, you can easily be exposed in so many ways. I mean, you can mistakenly even touch something that is infected. Could be the stair rails or some door, or I mean, so even though we maintain the protocol, I keep saying that sometimes you can go off guard and mistakenly touch something that is infected that you do not know. It could even be a door in your own house or the gates at your house. Maybe somebody probably lean on it, the person is infected. It's tricky. I mean, so sometimes I keep on saying that it's just by the grace of God that some people are lucky that they don't get infected. But I was one of the few people who was very particular about the protocol. But yet, it happened. I met someone who had become a friend of mine at the hospital who was even paranoid when it comes to keeping her. I mean, even when he comes out of his car and he's going back into the car, he disinfects the car on his own seat. But yet he caught it. So it still remains a mystery. We just have to be praying each day that we are lucky that we don't get exposed. Sorry, I can't hear you.
So you were in ICU for 2 days, which certainly
Yes.
means that you were one of those in a situation that was critical and you could have died. Tell us more about the encounter, starting with how you ended up in the hospital.
So do I start from how I ended up at the hospital or how I got to the ICU?
How you ended up in the hospital in the first place?
Well, so latter parts of May, I remember very well, I was in town. I'd actually gone to East Legon on an errand. And whilst driving, I felt very uncomfortable that I was running temperature and I felt feverish. So I drove back home. And when I got home, I mentioned to my wife that I wasn't feeling well. So then my little boy came to me and checked my temperature, and my temperature was around 37 point something. So he said, "Oh, Dad, your temperature is high." I went straight into bed. I think initially took a painkiller, went straight into bed to see if the temperature would go down or my feverishness would go. Subsequent to that, I think the temperature kept going up and up. So the following day, I think I called my doctor and I mentioned to her that this is what is happening, but I keep on running temperature and I'm feeling a bit feverish. So she advised that I take some paracetamol, which I did. I think, for some 2 days. The temperature drops and goes up again and so on and so forth. So I think the Monday, this must be a Thursday or a Friday, I think. The Monday after I decided to go to the hospital. In fact, a friend who was a doctor came home to test for malaria. There was no malaria parasite, but then he insisted that I should go to the hospital on Monday. So on the Monday, I went to the hospital. My doctor did malaria test, a typhoid test, also did a test to check whether there was an infection. And there was nothing like that. So we agreed that I should do a COVID test. This is a Monday. So when I got home, I think I called the clinic that I did my initial test. And I was made to understand that they did not have the swabs. So they will call me as soon as they get some. So this is until I think a Thursday or Friday that I went for the test. But meanwhile, my doctor had given me some medication, some painkillers, some antibiotic as well to be taken. So during that entire week, I was consistent on my medication. So I even had a test on the Friday or so. But by the day, I felt weaker, even though I was taking some medication. So yes, I did a test on Friday. But the Monday after, I felt extremely terrible. So a good friend of mine had called a friend who was a doctor to tell the doctor how I was feeling. Apparently, the doctor even mentioned to him that he suspected COVID. He was 100% sure that it was COVID, but the friend didn't tell me. I think he didn't want me to panic or didn't want my wife to panic. So I called my doctor and said I needed to go to the hospital and asked whether the results was in. I said, no, the results is not in, but I have to go to the hospital. The way I'm feeling, I can't be home. So we ended up at 37. By the time I got to 37, I was literally losing my breath. So immediately I was put on oxygen right at the, I don't know whether they call it OPD or emergencies department. So yes, I was put on oxygen. Then, of course, because I couldn't walk, because I could barely take about 10 steps. That's how terrible it was. And this is somebody who I walk about 8 kilometers on a daily basis. So not taking 10 steps was scary. So well, they took me for an X-ray. I had an X-ray, and then they noticed that I had a lung infection with pneumonia. So I was quickly admitted. At this time, we were waiting for our COVID results. So, I was admitted on the Monday at 37, drips, what have you, blah, blah. Fortunately, on Tuesday morning, I got my results, which had tested positive. So I had to be moved to an isolation center. So the closest one was the Airwork Stadium. And if you know the Airwork Stadium, it's an isolation center, and they built some military tents there. So I was taken there in an ambulance. And in the moment you test positive, you become government property. So even though my wife was there with our car, she was not allowed. I was not allowed to sit in the car, and I was put in an ambulance. Ambulance. I'm not sure if we go to Winnipeg, but it took me to work. Yeah, well, I got there, still on oxygen. I was placed on oxygen somewhere. A few hours after I was put on oxygen, I ran out of the oxygen. And in the tent, the nurses are not running regularly. So you need to call on a Motorola walkie-talkie for them to come to your tent and give you oxygen. If I'm not kidding, it must have taken about 4 to 5 hours before I got oxygen. I had to be calling friends to follow up at the hospital and follow up, all sorts of things. And eventually a nurse came, moved me from the bed on which I was lying to another bed where the oxygen was working. So I was given oxygen again. And then around about 2 a.m., I ran out of oxygen again. So I ran out of oxygen and I had to lie down till morning without oxygen.
Russell, what was going through your mind at the time, knowing that you had run out of oxygen?
A lot. A lot. I think my first scary experience was when I got up of the bed to pass urine and I got back onto the bed. I thought I wouldn't survive by the morning. It was so scary, Israel. It's I cannot explain. But so when I managed to lie down till about 6 a.m. and the nurse got in, I said to myself, this is a mental fight. I needed to be strong in the mind that I'm not going to go anywhere. So yes, in the morning,
whilst talking, you get to a point you were saying you were hesitant in talking about the actual experience. But one of the reasons why we're doing this is because there are people out there who actually feel that coronavirus is a hoax. It's not real. So if you may, would actually like to hear some of the details, some of the scary details. Hopefully, people out there will take a cue from it.
Yes. So one of the things, I was not in pain, but I felt extremely weak. I could barely take 5 to 10 steps. So even to get down and pass urine and get back to my bed was scary. You get back into your bed and the way you are panting makes you feel you are just going. And the thing is that there's nobody around. The person next to me was also somebody who was on oxygen and an elderly woman who I could see she was also struggling. And I couldn't obviously call that person for help. I tried at a point in time to call a line that I think a nurse or a doctor called me on, and nobody would pick it. And this is around 3 a.m. So at that point, it was myself and my God. I just had to lay down flat, and I kept panting. And I noticed that I was just losing my breath gradually. So at a point in time, I was scared to even close my eyes because I was scared if I closed my eyes, I would not wake up again, That's the thing. So fortunately, in the morning, a nurse came by. I had to go pass urine. And, in the tent, there are no washrooms. So then I had to walk and this is Elwak. So you needed to use the facility in the stadium. And that should be about more than 100 meters. And with somebody who could not take 10 steps, I needed to do that distance to just go and use the washroom. I think that was where I was able to put myself together, and I was strong enough to decide that, look, come what may, I need to be strong to survive. So yes, with the experience from Tuesday night till the morning, I think that we made phone calls that, look, I need to be moved from Elwak because I felt that my situation was critical. And I think that a few friends of mine, made the phone calls here and there. And finally, UGMC agreed to fetch me. So I think about 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock on Wednesday, an ambulance came for me, and then straight to UGMC, and then straight to ICU. I must say, the doctors and the nurses are doing extremely well. They are so professional. I mean, and you could see they go all the length to make you safe. When it comes to them, I'm lost for words. It's how to describe the kind of work they are doing. So yes, I was in ICU, and as soon as I got there, I was assured that I'll be well, and I should just relax.
Doc, Russell, did you believe them? Sometimes, yeah, they'll tell you, they'll give you all the assurances, but then you're wondering, okay, are they just telling me something?
Yeah, Israel, I think yes, because, for what I think I've seen at Airwork, and the kind of reception I got at UGMC, I think instantly it gave me some level of assurance. Okay. This is a situation that you are coming from a point that when you run out of oxygen, it took several hours for somebody to attend to you. Even when they moved you to the next place, you still ran out of oxygen. You didn't have a convenient, even to use the washroom was a problem, or you had to walk. I mean, and then we moved to this other facility that they are so receptive. They come to you and they run you through the process, what you be taken through. I mean, I think that the assurance was there instantly, and I think that I had no doubt in my mind that I was going to be well. It came across that this is a well set up place for somebody who was in a critical condition than where I was previously. So I think that coming from that angle, yes, I was assured that I'll be well.
All right, but I'm sure you had also heard that people end up in ICU and they don't come out. I mean, they don't survive. So knowing that you're going to end up in ICU and the 2 days that you spent in ICU, tell us about it.
The 2 days, I would say, look, for almost every 30 minutes, the doctors were coming to my bed. Almost every 30 minutes, the doctors were in my bed to check whether my oxygen levels were okay, and whether my BP was okay. My sugar levels was checked several times. I think that hours into my being admitted to ICU, I was a bit relaxed. I must say though that prior to leaving Airwork, I was scared. I wasn't too sure of what the turnout was going to be. But then somehow, with the kind of reception I got at the ICU at UGMC, I had some level of confidence, and the nurses and the doctors kept telling me that I'll be fine. My situation is not that bad. They've seen even worse cases, and I think that it did encourage me. I met somebody who had been in ICU for 13 days in coma, and that person said, "Look, when he opened his eye, he thought he was in some hospital abroad. I mean, he did not know how he got there." So in my case, at least I could see the ambulance taking me to UGMC. When I got there, when I was put in the wheelchair, I could see people around me. I think I was a bit lucky, I must say so. But people had gone through worse situation, and I think that yes, There are times that when people are there, they don't even think that they may survive. But of course, by the grace of God, we came out, and we are grateful to God for that.
You're a business owner yourself, and at some point, I don't know if you said the business had to be closed for a while. I don't know if you're back doing business, and how are you coping? You're the boss, but you get a sense that people are shying away from you. They're stigmatizing you, and how do you intend to handle some of these incidents?
Okay, so first of all, I think that having experienced any form of stigmatization, I think people have been receptive enough, and indeed, my very nature is such that if you even want to stigmatize it, I leave it up to you. I am very confident and happy. So it is, if you want to judge me because I have contracted COVID, and therefore it affects my ability to deliver, then it's entirely up to yours. But in terms of work, what I've first of all, work industry has been affected badly because of COVID, and therefore I also thought that it was not the best to encourage workers to be coming to the office. And so since March, we've not been at the office. But what we do is that if there's work to be done, we work remotely from home, and it's proven effective. I am the last person to want to put any of my team members into this situation. And the thing, like I said, is that you do not know where you can contract it. It could be in the trotro that they will sit, or in the Uber, or whatever. So staying at home, it's the safest I can think of for now, and I will continue to do that.
But you need to run a business as well.
Yes, the business can run, and we can run from home. A lot of businesses are running home now. It hasn't affected their ability to deliver. So I think that that can be done. The thing is that business rather is on the downside. So we are rather hope that business will pick up so that the business doesn't struggle. Even though people are home, you are compelled to remunerate them on a monthly basis. There are certain fixed costs that you cannot run away from it. You have to pay your office rents and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So it's essential that business picks up so that we can sustain ourselves in industry. And that's for me the troubling part of this whole thing. But I don't think that working at home and allowing the team members to work at home would greatly affect our productivity.
All right. Now let me go to.
I keep on saying that COVID is so real. I mean, I have seen somebody drive with a spouse to the hospital, and within 30 minutes, the husband passed as a result of COVID. I've seen somebody who was in a critical condition who at a point in time, and this person probably is a very wealthy person, and at the point in time, money even couldn't buy his or her safety. So it is something that we do not have to joke. We don't have to joke with it at all. Okay, it's not something I wish for my worst enemy. So it's important that the protocols are kept. It is important that we do the right things and make sure that we keep each another safe.